Hi everyone, it's Sam, NFTstatistics with your Proof Daily NFT Countdown. Lots to talk about today. It feels a little bit like a bull market again. You have this Clear Silver news, Yuga Labs Ordinals kind of going through the roof. The Mocaverse launch went pretty well. Let's get right to it. Starting with the quick market overview. ETH volumes down a touch. Again, we've kind of been trending lower. Feels like the airdrop farmers are getting a little bit more tired. Not going to read too deep into that. The market share for Blur still completely in control, has gone down a touch, went from about 85% to 75%, but still, the market share very much in Blur's camp. In terms of the large cap index, it rose a little bit, largely because of Codas, up 13%, Punks strong as well. Digging a bit more into Codas, the ones that hold the weapons tend to trade at the biggest premium. You can see this guy. I think he's got a weapon. I think he does. But, the weapon holding Coda now up above 20 ETH. For the first time since August. Nice to see that movement there. In terms of the mid caps, the whole index was broadly flat, but Deadfellas, On-Chain Monkey, quite strong. A little bit of weakness in Valhalla and Potatoes. Yesterday I talked about Potatoes being up. Now I'm talking about them being down. Looking at these charts every day, I feel like that happens all the time. Like one has a big move up and then the next day has a big move down. Not going to read too much into it. On-Chain Monkey, though, let's look at this chart. Basically hitting a high that goes all the way back to the very beginning of 2022. So really nice movement there. Congrats to people involved in On-Chain Monkey. Wanted to touch on Momoguru. As you remember, this was a mint, I believe it was last week or mid last week, and they did their art reveal. And what you can see here is when that art reveal happened, you had a ton of sales that kind of were happening well above floor, but you also saw the floor completely crater. Went from 0.5 ETH down to 0.3 ETH. Then the sales kind of ratcheted up a little bit to a little bit higher than 0.3, but a bit of weakness. We see this a lot where, the floor goes down and you get those higher sales for the grails after a reveal goes. I think part of the issue here is I look at all this art, and this is just my opinion, and it all looks very similar. I'm not sitting here thinking I want to collect all sorts of different ones of these NFTs. So I don't know, not too surprised to see the weakness after that reveal. In terms of art projects, there were 8 that did more than 10 ETH of volume. We added ByteDance to the list because Pinder Van Arman pinged me, said, why isn't ByteDance on that list? I said, good point. It's a 1,111 piece set. No reason it shouldn't be on here when a lot of art blocks are on here. There was a Fidenza sale. We'll talk about that a little bit later. A few squiggle sales and a little bit of volume elsewhere. Okay, second story to talk about. Clear Silver in Le Louvre. I even put that in French, the Louvre. Let's go. Clear Silver. I think this is just like the coolest news. Basically said that her piece and her collection are both going to be featured in the Louvre. She also signed with WME as their first AI artist. Had Variety cover this story. It's going to be in their print edition coming this week. Now, just recapping all this, her new collection plus her piece Love It First Touring are both going to be shown at the museum. She signed with WME. The one of one that is showing is available right now for bidding, and the new collection will be up for sale on March 21st. Here is the one of one. The current top bid on OpenSea is 44.44 ETH. Claire has had 2 sales at 50 ETH before. I cannot imagine that this will not go for a lot higher. We're still very early in the auction, but this is really, I think, just going to level up the prices of her work. In terms of the collection, she says, it follows my life from childhood poverty in a cornfield town to the digital reality I am currently living, focuses on cultivating a sense of intimacy between artist, viewer, and tool. She's always been such an advocate for AI art. And, again, that's what's going to come out in this collection. One thing I wanted to talk about with Claire, one of the things that made me real excited about this news, Claire is on the Proof podcast. And when she was on the Proof podcast, first of all, she talked about how she wasn't selling pieces for 0.1 ETH at the very beginning just a few years ago. And now she's being featured at one of the most historic museums on the planet. But she said, when I first got my first punk, Mr. 703, who gifted it to me, said you shouldn't sell it until a punk is featured in the MoMA. Okay, and how crazy is it that the punk hasn't got to the MoMA yet, but her work is getting featured at the Louvre in Paris? Just completely incredible. I'm giving her a little applause there. Congrats, Claire. Amazing work. Third story to talk about. Yuga Labs raised over $15 million on Ordinal sale. I actually believe it was $16.5 million that they raised. Again, 375 Bitcoin. Here is a picture of the work. You can see here the top bid was at over 7 ETH. One thing that's kind of interesting, though, is you go from 7 ETH to 4 ETH in just 3 bidders. So a real differentiation between number 1 and number 3. And then it kind of goes all the way down to about 2.25 was the minimum bid. Here are the stats again. 7.11 Bitcoin. That's 101 ETH for the top piece. The average sale was 2.55, 36.5 ETH. and the minimum to get one of these ordinals was 32 ETH. Now, my main takeaway here is that there are a lot of people who love Yuga Labs. NFT God, I think we've all seen his threads, but one of the things he says that's kind of interesting is build community first and then launch your product. Well, Yuga, we already know, has one of the biggest communities, thousands and thousands of people who completely swear by that community, and who also have a lot of ETH. You have to have $100,000 just to get a Bored Ape. So to me, when they're launching this project of just 300, it is not surprising that they were able to fetch really strong prices for it. I'm also not too surprised and don't see this as all that off-brand because Yuga did buy punks. Like, they want to be in the historic game. I'm not surprised they also want to be in the art game. They have over 100 people who work at this company. So overall, none of this really surprises me all that much. But generally speaking, it's a pretty huge sale. If you measure it against some of the top Art Blocks projects, market cap, I believe, is in the top 15 of all the Art Blocks projects out there. So pretty impressive what they did in this first go. One thing I did want to touch on, this is yesterday's slide from my show yesterday. And you can see at the very top bid after 12 hours was just 2 Bitcoin. Wouldn't even made it to the top 288. Always shows, like, with these auctions, it's really the action in the last minute that tends to make all the difference. Don't read too much into those early numbers. Fourth story to talk about, Mocaverse Launch. Mocha, just to give a little bit of background on this, here's an image of Mocaverse. It says 6599 had been minted. It's probably higher now. They're going to be 8,888 total mints over time. This is a mint by Animoca Brands from the country I lived in for 15 years, Hong Kong. A little bit about Animoca. They're run by Yacht, who you may have seen on Twitter. He's the chairman. He's a very vocal person about the digital space. This company developed Sandbox. They've invested in 380 companies, including Yuga. I believe they're doing a lot of work on other side. Their mission is driving digital property rights via NFTs and gaming to build the open metaverse. Now, as far as the stats around this mint, there was, again, 6,000 and change so far. The mint price was 0.069. It was really 0.138, but for 0.138, you got 2 NFTs. And the mint was really, as far as who gets this, it was really designated for people who work at Animoca and for people who are part of their portfolio companies. So this was really like a gift that they gave out to the community of just the whole web of people who are involved with their portfolio and other things. In terms of trading behavior, you had some initial sales up at 3 ETH, went all the way down to about 1.7 ETH. But when you're looking at a 0.069 mint and people got 2 of them, that is nothing to scoff at. I think floor right now is in that 1.6, 1.7 range. A little bit about this. It was pretty hard to understand exactly what the NFT does. They talk about, using it to learn. There's the realm of building, there's a realm of playing, realm of doing good, charity type work. So they talked about these different realms, but it was all kind of a bit fuzzy, not super concrete as far as what this is all going to mean. They also talked about the different types that are going to emerge. You have dreamers, builders, angels, connectors, neo-capitalists. Who knows? So there's going to be, basically just kind of a fuzzy roadmap that they played out. But I think because of their strength in the ecosystem, their connectivity, the projects they've built, this project tend to do pretty well on that initial mint day. Last thing to talk about, notable sales. First, this Bored Ape Yacht Club Trippy Fur meets King's Crown, sold for 440 ETH. What a crazy number. The first person to buy it was EB7. I talked about him a fair bit. He's a friend of mine. He was the buyer. But one of the things EB7 does is he is a broker. He stands in the middle of people who want to put on big ape trades, big punk trades, stuff like that. So this trade was actually, in reality, for Nobody.eth. I've talked about Nobody.eth a ton. He is definitely the whale making the biggest moves in the Yuga ecosystem. So he was the one just adding another grail to his collection. Second sale to talk about, this Fidenza sold for 82 ETH, kind of right in the range of where Fidenzas sell. It was bought by OSF though. OSF recently tweeted, after 2 years since fumbling Fidenzas at 0.5 ETH, he's finally made peace. And he tweeted this in regards to another Fidenza he bought. So this one on the right, he bought for 85 ETH a couple days ago. Then he added the one for 82 yesterday. Clearly, this guy likes these pink salmon backgrounds for his Fidenzas. We all know that OSF and Mando made $9 million on their recent Bored Ape Yacht Club sale. So it's good to see them putting money back into the NFT ecosystem. This is where OSF put some of his money. Also bought some one-of-ones. I think we'll talk about that tomorrow, though. One-of-one I did want to talk about was a sale on AOTM. This piece is called The Battle Over River Z by C3, and this sold on AOTM for about 11 ETH. A little bit of background on the artist. The artist on his website says, I'm an Iranian artist. I do political protest art. Because of the political nature of my art, I see NFTs as a way to get my voice out there in the world. I did not expect anything to happen when I started this. And I just wanted to document true stories that happened in Iran as a unique way to hope that in 10, 20 years down the road, someone would find it on the blockchain and know the stories that we lived and breathed in this world, and the evil people killed us for it. So a very political nature to the work he does. In the description of this piece that he just sold, he said, the death of one man is a tragedy, the death of a million is a statistic. We were the statistic, nameless and faceless. Now, he said this artist has had a bunch of sales in this 10 to 13 ETH range. Here you can see 4 of them, and his Twitter is really full of protest and political messages. And he says that that's really what he wants to use his Twitter for. Worth a follow, interesting person to follow. Congrats to everybody involved there on the success of this art. Clearly pretty heavy. But that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did enjoy it, like it below, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about it. We'll be back tomorrow and every weekday with another show. Thanks a bunch.